Hi, my name's Felicity and I head up the licensing and leisure team at Kuits solicitors. We act for a wide range of hospitality operators up and down the country, and I'm joined today by my colleague Becky Ingram because we thought we'd just have a quick chat about some of the issues that are facing our clients at the moment. Something that's arisen over the last week or so as lockdown begins to ease and the sun begins to shine, and that's whether it's time to reopen beer gardens. We should caveat anything that we say in this little discussion isn't a comment on whether the lockdown should be eased. Obviously that's a matter for the government and for science. But it is beginning to ease, and that is throwing up a couple of problems. Becky, what are we seeing? What are clients telling you at the moment?
Yeah, I think we're seeing issues now in relation to how Offsales operates and what operators can and can't do. We had obviously a lot of discussions at the start of the lockdown, if you like, with operators who were talking about could they supply alcohol and food, of course, for customers to take home. And I think it was quite clear at the start of the lockdown when operators were selling beers or wines or whatever that the purpose of that sale would be for consumers to take home and consume there. But now that we've started to see an easing, there's a bit of a muddying of the waters there. And particularly since a couple of weeks ago when we had the announcement that unlimited leisure time would be permitted. And I think we had sort of the Prime Minister's announcement very specifically said, you know, you're permitted to spend unlimited time outside sunbathing, picnics, barbecues, that sort of thing. So we started to see people coming out to use public outdoor spaces like parks and beaches and that sort of thing. And some of them might be coming out and having drinks, possibly bringing them from home, possibly buying them from supermarkets. And so we've started to see some bar and restaurant operators think, well, perhaps I can have a little part of that and start to sell alcohol for people to sit outside and drink. And I think we've seen that has caused some issues. Some authorities have tried to clamp down on that, despite the fact actually that it is in most cases entirely permissible, provided that operators have got off sales and there's no restrictions on their licence in that regard. They're doing something that they're permitted to do, but I think it's inadvertently perhaps causing some problems.
Yeah, undoubtedly the issue of street drinking is a problem, isn't it, for towns and cities up and down the country. But the ban on allowing operators to use their own outside space is causing some unintended consequences, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, there's obviously an inadvertent outcome to this that's causing a little bit of confusion in terms of messaging to customers and in terms of bars sort of knowing what it is they're able to do. But we seem to have, I think, particularly since the easing that's come in today with groups of up to 6 people being able to meet out in public, we're starting to see a bit of essentially an illogical distinction between types of outdoor space. We've got sort of our public spaces, our private outdoor spaces like gardens and so on, where people can now meet and gather together, obviously with those social distancing measures in place, and then our commercial outside spaces. So if we take an example of a premises that might have off sales, it might have a nice big garden, and then it might be situated near to a park or a beach or something like that. So this sort of premises has been given an instruction by the government either to close for consumption completely or close for consumption on the premises. So if we've got a business that's making use of their off sales, they're now able to provide alcohol to customers to perhaps go and sit a few meters away from their premises in a park, but they're not able to provide it for customers to sit in an outdoor space that they own and operate and that they would have more control over. And that's causing a few difficulties and just some anomalies in how that works.
So unless the government makes some changes to the way in which the lockdown legislation works, what do you think is going to happen in the coming weeks?
Well, I think we're starting to see already that, as I've said, authorities are trying to crack down on some operators, particularly some that are perhaps trying to sell draft alcohol. And they might be doing that with the idea that people would go and sit in parks because that is perfectly permissible, or they might be doing it with the idea that they take it home. But a lot of customers are coming, purchasing alcohol, and then going and sitting in parks or in public squares or whatever. That's causing a bit of tension with perhaps local residents. If you're a resident that lives near a park and you want to use that park for exercise, for example, but you're finding that you're just confronted with, you know, loads of groups of people having picnics, drinking alcohol, potentially littering, potentially not respecting those social distancing measures, potentially antisocial behaviour. But the difficulty you've got is if you've got a public space, if you've got a park, people there with the alcohol could have bought it from a variety of places. They could have bought it from the hypothetical pub that I was referring to. They could have bought it from a supermarket. They could have bought it from home. So it's very difficult to enforce against anyone in particular. And it's difficult to enforce against the individuals themselves because they're not doing anything they're not supposed to be doing unless it does escalate to that antisocial behaviour element. It just causes a lot of strangeness. It's, you know, it's a funny message to send to customers that they can't sit or stand directly outside your premises in your nice beer garden, but they can go and sit and stand, you know, a few metres down the road. We've even had examples of clients who are saying, well, actually, I've closed my premises completely, but I happen to have some nice fixed outdoor furniture at the front of my premises. The bar down the road is offering Offsales. They've got a nice outdoor premises as well, outdoor space outside the premises as well. Their customers aren't allowed to sit in their outdoor area, but we've seen customers purchasing Offsales from one premises and then wandering down and taking it upon themselves to sit in the outdoor space of a closed premises because there's nobody there to stop them. And there's actually nothing illegitimate in that, aside from the fact that the closed premises might well not want people sat on their furniture. So yeah, it's causing some strange issues and some issues in terms of oversight and enforcement, I think.
So what would you suggest or recommend that operators could do looking forward to as lockdown begins to ease? Are there steps that they can take to try the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, it's difficult to see that this will change perhaps in the next couple of weeks. We'd like to see that being the case, but obviously that would have to come from the central government, and they would have to acknowledge that they've created this odd distinction between public spaces and commercial spaces. I mean, if this were to change, I think that operators who have already overcome the sort of operational challenges around, can we provide Offsales, can we physically get that pint to the customer in a socially distanced way with queuing and with the provision of the drink itself. If they've overcome those hurdles, the next hurdle to overcome, which probably isn't quite as operationally challenging potentially, is just the access and egress to and from their external space, keeping people apart within that external space, which I think would be done by the placement of tables, and then obviously sanitising and cleaning those tables. So whether that was something that changes sooner than we think it will, or whether it's something that's going to kick in sort of 4th of July at present, I think it's an important thing for operators to start thinking about outside space. I think a lot of the indications that we're seeing are that operators with outdoor space are going to either be treated favourably or are going to find things easier just simply because they've got more space to allow for that social distancing. So it allows them to keep their capacity higher and make things more profitable. So I'd advise operators to really start thinking about how they can ensure social distancing, whether it's going to continue to be 2 metres or whether it's going to be reduced in any outside space that they do have, and also whether there is any outside space within the vicinity of their premises that perhaps they're not currently making the most of, but they might be able to use going forward. We've had clients talking about, you know, they've got car parks that they use. Could they perhaps take a chunk of the car park and start using that to put some furniture on? So I think now's the time to be thinking about that sort of thing while we see this emphasis on outdoors being safer than indoors.
Thanks, Becky. That was great. Becky and I have been talking about these sorts of issues and others that are currently facing operators at our weekly leisure lunch, which we host online via Zoom on Thursdays between 12 and 1. Anyone is welcome to join us. If you want some more details, then just go to the Kuits website, which is www.kuits.com, and we'd love to see you there. Hope you found today useful. Thank you very much.